Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, and today I want to give you guys my impressions of Season 4. If you're anything like me, you've likely already heard that opinions on Season 4 are pretty varied, so is it any good? Is there anything completely broken? And perhaps most importantly, is it worth reinstalling the game for? Before we begin though, if you enjoy the content, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any upcoming content. We are getting real close to 41,000 subs guys, so hit that button for me and let's see how fast we can get there. So let's begin with the biggest thing here, the new map, Flashpoint. So firstly here, let me just say that I, as a Battlefield player, am more of a fan of Conquest rather than Breakthrough. And this map feels very much so like it's been designed around Breakthrough rather than Conquest to me. And I believe in fact that they alluded to that on the Inside Battlefield podcast last Monday. So it's a very long map, very elongated, think Spearhead only even narrower, and when playing in 32v32 Breakthrough, that's fine because Breakthrough is supposed to have these two front lines, and we'll talk more about Breakthrough soon. But in Conquest, at least on 128 players, which is the only size available at the moment, it is very chaotic at and around the three central flags of the map. You will likely find that at many times, playing Conquest turns into a game of Breakthrough, with the center three flags being the meat grinder front lines of the map. There are tons of elevation points here as well, an abundance of rocky terrain, think like the sandy, rocky, mountainous areas of Renewal. I'm sure you're familiar with how there could always be a soldier in any nook and cranny, and all of a sudden an enemy just pops out of nowhere or snipes you from somewhere you hadn't even noticed, like some sort of disguised sand beetle. Yeah, there's a lot of that sort of stuff going on. Now the trailer and DICE's voiceover had me believing that actually at least half of this map was underground, and there would be some cool CQC areas like the cubes on Spearhead for example, and that was going to be the real meat grinder. But I can tell you that it feels like maybe about 20% of this map, maybe even 15%, is actually underground. There's a large excavated hole in the ground at the D flag that you can zipline in and out of, and that connects to the E flag and the C flag I believe. But apart from that, as far as I know, the other four flags on the map are just buildings, cover, and there's really nothing that different about them than any other flag on any other map. Now this could be my lack of experience with the map, perhaps I haven't found all the little secret entry points and the flanking routes, but it certainly felt like I spent way more time above ground than underground, and the real meat grinder was on top of the cliff edges. These particular cliffs here, between B1 and C1, and then again between D1 and E1, are absolutely chock full of campers. If you're fighting on and around these flags, you really don't know which way to look, and I found it very difficult to play tactically. This could be a symptom of 128 players. I certainly feel like this map in particular is simply too narrow and too densely populated with flags at the center for 128 players. Now on Breakthrough, I found that the attacking side won almost every time. Surprise, surprise, I know. The out of bounds areas for defenders always seemed to be right on the crest of some hill, meaning that you couldn't look down the hill and hurt the other team. The attacking team didn't even have to fight an uphill battle, they could just simply run up the hill, and by the time they got there, they were almost on the cap, so holding them back as the defenders proved pretty difficult. Furthermore, the attackers play as the US side here, and they get a Condor along with a couple of tanks and some transports. So you basically absolutely steamroll the first point, which I guess is somewhat intended, but then on the second point, the attackers' tanks are able to easily fall back behind the hillside, and you can't really touch them without going out of bounds. So taking down those tanks was almost impossible. So I think initial impressions of the map for me overall are that it isn't my favourite map in the game at the moment, but it certainly isn't the worst map either. Now this could change. I think there's always a level of frustration that accompanies playing any new map. You don't know where you're going, you don't know the lanes, the busy areas, etc., and it feels like you're getting shot from everywhere. So I'm sure it'll grow on me and hopefully you as well the more we play. Okay, moving on, let's talk about the new specialist, Camila Blasco. So her new gadget, the Jammer, actually does way more than it says on the tin, and it seems to be quite powerful. On top of blocking lock-ons, blocking spotting tech, and pinpointing where enemy gadgets are, it also really messes with your minimap. So not only does it stop the soldier within its radius from spotting Blasco, but they can't spot anyone because their minimap becomes scrambled to the point where you may as well just not have a minimap. In addition to that, it also plays an audible beep sound for friendlies whenever an enemy enters its radius, so you always know when somebody is coming. Then it scrambles your audio whilst in the area of effect, and it kind of sounds like this white noise or static feedback sound that really dulls your senses, and it stops you being able to hear enemy footsteps as clearly. Honestly, this is really effective for Blasco, but incredibly annoying if you're not Blasco. As somebody who plays with their headphones quite loud precisely to hear enemy footsteps, this thing just feels like an assault on my ears. It's almost as bad as the game's soundtrack. Furthermore, there appears to be a bug in the game whereby if you enter the area of effect of one of these Blasco jammers and then you either destroy the jammer or you leave the area, this white noise sound effect continues to play for you until you die. And since everyone and their grandma is using Blasco at the moment, you can barely take a few steps without walking into one of these beacons. How DICE didn't spot this bug is absolutely beyond me. How do you playtest a build and not spot an issue that I and my viewers spotted within one single round? But, you know, they need to hotfix this yesterday. No joke. If you've played the game, you might think I'm exaggerating, but if you've played it and you've experienced this, then you know it's bad. My god, DICE, just please fix it. Now, in terms of new weapons and equipment, obviously much of it I still have to unlock through the battle pass, and I'll bring you my thoughts on all of that stuff when that happens. But I do have the new AP9 SMG. It has 1080 rate of fire, so it's basically like a pocket K30. I think a K30 has 1100, although it feels like it has a lot of side-to-side recoil, and I'm not sure if it's just me, but it also looks like it has some visual recoil to it as well. Now, bear in mind, I don't have a single attachment unlocked for this thing yet, so obviously that will change things, and I'll give you my full thoughts on it once I've gotten a full loadout unlocked. But for the time being, I don't really understand where this weapon fits in when you've already got the K30 that delivers 1100 RPM, so what are you going to do with a weapon that has 1080? The biggest change between that and the K30 is that the AP9 has far better handling, but it will do less damage. Then I also unlocked the new SPH explosive launcher, and I have to say, this thing seems very good, especially since it's for one of the best classes in the game, the assault class. So you can fire 2 shots at a time, you get 4 in total, it has a delay of about 1.5 seconds, and then boom, it explodes. Obviously, if you stick it to an enemy, it's a one-shot, but you can see here from my testing that the kill range is pretty damn generous, and given the distance that you can fire this at with how accurate it is, I think this is an insane gadget to have. Okay, next there are some really nice little additions that DICE added to the UI. So firstly, there are new minimap options for minimap scale and minimap icon size and transparency. You'll also notice that they've added a little up or down arrow to indicate an enemy that's below or above you. So that's a really nice touch, and honestly, it's been a long time coming. However, there do seem to be a few new bugs that accompany this. So whenever I open up the big map and it does that circle animation to highlight where you are as a player, it always plays that animation around every single Blasco jammer on the map. I'm not sure why it does that, but I have a feeling that it's unintended. Also, the player marker no longer correctly responds to the location you are facing. You can clearly see the cone of vision, but the little green arrow always points the same way. There have also been some fantastic improvements to the beginning of round insertion and end of round screens, so you can now change your class and loadout earlier on before you even get into the deployment screen. If you don't select anywhere to spawn, you won't be automatically deployed anymore, and the turnaround between matches has been shortened across the board, so you will insert into a new game much faster than before. Now, the jets, of course, have seen some improvements too. Their turn speeds have been improved for both of them, and the F-35 has had its speed brought up to be closer to that of the Su-57. I'm not sure if it's quite as fast as the Su-57 still, but it's definitely an improvement. However, aiming to me strangely feels harder than it did before, but maybe I just need to fiddle with my sensitivity to match the new turning speeds. And finally, of course, Liz's TV missile has been nerfed quite considerably. I did play in the Nightbird a little bit here and there, and I didn't really notice as many people using Liz, and from my own testing with her, it is definitely a lot slower than it was before. So those are my first impressions so far after around 4 hours of playtime. I'm sure as I play more and get better at the map, I'll enjoy it even more, and of course I'll be bringing you guys my thoughts on the rest of the season once I unlock everything. So make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for that. As always, let me know your thoughts below guys, tell me how you've been getting on, and I'll see you in the next one.